Some things on the internet are not meant to be found. They lurk in the shadows, waiting.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, you're about to hear stories that don't just scare you, they stay with you. If you love horror stories, paranormal encounters, and real-life scary experiences, then this video is made just for you. Dim the lights, put on your headphones, and get yourself ready. Because tonight we're stepping into a world of stories, where coming back isn't always easy. It is 2:37 in the morning, and I have recorded this introduction 3 times already. Every time I stop, I ask myself the same question. Why am I still doing this when I know how these stories end for the people who tell them? I am tired, yes, but it is not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. It is the kind that sits behind your eyes and whispers that you should not open certain files, not reread certain messages, not share certain names. 3 people asked me to delete this file. I did not. I tell myself this is just another horror video, just another late night recording for people who like to fall asleep to scary stories. But I also know what happens to those people after this one. They message me days later saying they cannot sleep anymore. They say they hear small sounds in their rooms that they never noticed before. They say they regret choosing this video when they needed something comforting. Comforting. If you are watching this alone at night, you have already made the mistake. There are stories in this collection that were never meant to be public. They were sent to me with warnings, with requests, with quiet fear, hidden between every line. I promised some of those people I would never share what they told me. I am breaking that promise right now, and the only excuse I have is that once you see the pattern, you cannot pretend you do not see it anymore. Because that is the part nobody tells you. These are not just separate ghost stories. They connect, not in ways you notice at first, but in ways that follow you later. A phrase you hear twice. A symbol that appears where it should not. A feeling that tells you the last story changes how all the others feel once you finally understand it. I used to think fear was something you turned off when the screen went dark. Now I know better. Fear is patient. It waits in quiet corners of your room and in the pauses between breaths. Tonight, I am not here to scare you. I am here to warn you. That difference matters more than you realize tonight. Seriously, I am not sure I want you to understand it, but I am going to tell you anyway. So let us start with the one that made me stop answering emails after midnight. I did not believe the message at first because it sounded like every exhausted parent's story I had ever heard. Sleepless nights, hallucinations, imagination running wild at 3 in the morning. But the way he described it made me stop scrolling and start listening. He said it began like static, just a soft hiss coming from the baby monitor on the nightstand, the kind you barely notice when you are half asleep. He thought it was interference from another device in the house, maybe a neighbor's radio signal bleeding through. He even laughed about it the next day, said, "Guess I need to buy a better monitor." The second night, the static changed. It sounded closer somehow, like breathing through a cheap microphone. He leaned over and tapped the screen. "Hello?" he whispered, not even sure why he did it. His wife rolled over and mumbled, "Is everything okay?" "Yeah," he said. "Just noise again." Then the noise whispered back. At first he thought it was just air moving through the speaker, but then he heard the shape of words forming. Not clear enough to understand, just enough to make his stomach tighten. He picked up the monitor and turned the volume higher, heart beating harder with every second. That was when it said his daughters. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a soft, calm voice saying it the way someone does when they stand in a doorway and want to wake a child gently. He stood up so fast the chair behind him fell over. "Did you hear that?" he asked his wife. "Hear what?" she said, already sitting up now, eyes wide. He did not answer. He just walked down the hallway, every step feeling heavier than the last. When he opened the nursery door, His daughter was asleep. Peaceful. The room was quiet. Too quiet. They checked the monitor. They changed the channel. They unplugged every wireless device in the house. The voice did not come back that night, but neither did sleep. The next day, he called the company that made the monitor. They ran diagnostics, checked frequencies, asked if anyone nearby used similar equipment. Everything came back clean. There's no way a voice could come through like that, the technician said. Not on this model. That should have been comforting. It was not. A week later, the man sent me the audio file he had recorded on his phone that night. I played it alone, late, with my door locked and the lights on. The static was there. The breathing sound was there. And right in the middle of it, clear as anything I have ever heard, was a voice saying a child's name. I asked an audio expert to analyze it. He messaged me back 2 days later with only one line. The sound did not come from any known frequency. He asked me where I got it. I told him it came from a tired father who just wanted to sleep. He told me to stop sharing it and delete the file. I did not listen, and now you have heard it too. He told me the story like it was nothing, like he was describing a bad dream that never fully leaves you. He had worked late, missed the usual train, and did what he always did when that happened. He walked to the bus stop near the station and waited with 2 other strangers. Under the dim streetlight, the bus arrived on time. It looked normal. Same color, same number, same quiet hum of the engine. He got on, paid, and sat near the middle, scrolling his phone while the city slid past the windows. The other passengers stared at the floor. The driver never looked back. After 10 minutes, the first man got off, then the woman near the front. By the time the bus turned onto a narrower road, my friend was the only one left. He pressed the stop button. Nothing happened. "Excuse me," he said, leaning forward. "This is my stop." The driver did not answer. The streets outside the window were wrong now. Too dark, too empty. Buildings that should have been there were gone, replaced by old storefronts with signs he could not read. He stood up, walked closer to the front, and said louder, "Please stop the bus." Still nothing. When the bus finally slowed, it was not at a stop. It was at the edge of a town he had never seen before. No station, no lights, just a narrow road and quiet houses that felt like they were holding their breath. He stepped off because staying on felt worse than leaving. The bus pulled away without a sound, and the street went silent again. He walked for almost an hour before finding a small convenience store that was somehow still open. The man behind the counter stared at him like he did not belong there. "Where am I?" he asked. The clerk gave him a name he had never heard before. The next morning, my friend took the first train home. When he searched the place online, nothing came up. No town, no photos, no records. He even asked at the station about the bus route. "There is no bus that goes there," the attendant said. "There never has been." That is when he showed me the ticket. "I still have it," he told me. "It has no date." I thought it was a trick at first, but the paper was real. The ink was real. Everything about it looked normal except for what was missing. Later, when I started collecting stories like this, I found. The nurse who told me this laughed at first. The way people do when they talk about something they are not ready to admit scares them. She worked night shifts in a small hospital on the edge of town, the kind where the halls are always quiet and the lights feel too bright after midnight. It started with a shadow. Not the normal kind that moves when someone walks past the door, but a tall shape that stood in the corner of one patient's room every night. She noticed it during her rounds, just after 2 in the morning. At first, she blamed exhaustion. 12-hour shifts will make your eyes play tricks on you. The next night, the same patient passed away. The third night, another shadow appeared in another room. Another patient died before sunrise. "We stopped calling it a shadow after the third death," she whispered to me. It felt like naming it made it stronger. Soon the nurses began talking about it in the break room, voices low, pretending they were joking. One of them said, "Maybe it's just here to clock in too." Another replied, "Yeah, but it never clocks out." Dark humor is how people survive in places where death becomes routine. But the pattern was impossible to ignore. Whenever the tall shape appeared at the foot of a bed, the patient in that room never made it through the night. Doctors blamed complications. Administrators blamed coincidence. The nurses blamed something none of them wanted to describe out loud. Some of them started checking the rooms early, hoping to prove themselves wrong. They would stand in doorways longer than necessary, pretending to adjust charts just to see if the corner stayed empty. It almost never did. After a while, a few nurses began switching shifts whenever they felt that heavy silence settle in the ward, convinced it meant the shadow was already there waiting. One night, she stayed late after her shift, watching the corridor through the glass window of the station. At 2:14 a.m., she saw it again. A long figure standing where no one stood before, stretching toward the ceiling like it did not belong in a place built for humans. She walked closer, heart pounding, and whispered, "Who are you here for?" The shadow did not move. That patient passed away at 4:03 a.m. After that, she asked to be transferred to day shifts. She told herself she was just tired of nights. But the real reason followed her home. A month later, she woke up in her apartment before sunrise, the room still dark, the city quiet outside her window. She turned her head and froze. At the foot of her bed stood the same tall shape she had seen so many times before. She told me later she would see it again, years later, in a place that should have been safe. It did not reach for her. It did not move toward her. It simply waited the way it always did. And neither was. That was when she understood something. These were not random events. They were patterns. You've probably noticed it by now. The stories start to sound the same, even though they come from different people, different countries, different lives. I used to think that was just coincidence. Same fears, same imagination, same tricks of the dark. But after a while, the details began to overlap too perfectly to ignore. Every week, someone emails me saying, "I don't know who else to tell this to." They think their story is unique. A voice through static, a figure at the edge of sight, a place that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. They all believe they're the first to experience it. They're not. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. That's when I started collecting these stories. I kept them organized by country. I thought maybe culture shaped the type of hauntings people reported. But that theory broke down fast. The same phrases appeared again and again in messages written in completely different languages. People said they'd heard the whisper behind the wall, or the room that wasn't there yesterday, or the figure that waits but never moves. Different people, same words, same patterns. I started marking them on a map. Japan, Brazil, Germany, the UK, the same signs connecting points across oceans. It looked random at first, but there was something circular about it. A shape that seemed incomplete, like something still forming. Here's the part that keeps me up at night. Sometimes the stories reference each other before I even post them. A nurse in London mentions a noise that matches a recording sent from a man in Ohio. A driver in Canada describes a woman walking through traffic, and a week later, someone in India dreams about her face. I don't know what to call it yet. A signal, maybe, or a rule behind every haunting that we aren't supposed to notice. I'll say this much. If anything in these stories feels familiar to you, if you've seen the same signs or heard the same voices, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment. Tell me, one of those patterns appears in the next story, and it still terrifies me. Heard about room 307 from a hotel worker who swore he was done talking about it, right up until the moment he started. He worked the night desk at a busy business hotel, the kind where nothing strange ever happens and nothing interesting is supposed to. Guests came, guests left, keys were printed, complaints were handled, and the hours passed quietly. Until one night after midnight, he noticed a couple standing at the desk, asking to check into a room that did not exist on the hotel map. Room 307, the man said politely. The worker laughed, thinking it was a joke, and told him the hotel only had rooms up to 306. The woman smiled and slid a printed reservation across the counter. It clearly read 307. Room 307 is not on the map, but it takes reservations. Curious and a little uneasy, the worker walked down the third-floor hallway. At the end of the corridor, where the emergency exit should have been, there was a door he had never seen before. The plaque on it read 307. He stood there longer than he should have, listening. Nothing. Just the hum of the lights and the distant sound of traffic below. By morning, the door was gone. He thought it was a trick of exhaustion until it happened again. Different guests. Same room. Always after midnight. Always gone by sunrise. Housekeeping never cleaned it because they never saw it. Maintenance never fixed it because it was never on their floor plans. Then people started noticing something else. Anyone who checked into room 307 never checked out. Their bags stayed behind. Their names vanished from the system. When the worker reviewed security footage, the video glitched every time someone stepped into that part of the hallway. The screen would freeze for a second, then jump forward, as if the moment had been erased. One night, after a long shift, he decided to look at the old guest logs. Pages of handwritten names, normal stays, normal dates, and then he saw it. Room 307 appeared in the records going back years. Different cities, different hotels, same number, same blank space after the checkout date. His hands started shaking as he reached the most recent entry. The guest name was his. He tried to warn his manager the next day, but the man only laughed and told him to get some rest. When he insisted, the manager pulled up the floor plan and showed him the end of the hallway. No door, no number, just a wall that had always been there. That was when he realized something else had already decided what he was allowed to see. He told me he quit the next day, packed his things, moved back in with his parents. He still wakes up at night, checking the time, afraid of what might appear after midnight. He believes that room does not belong to one hotel. It travels. It waits for people who notice it. And if you ever find yourself counting doors at night, you may be closer than you think. Some places they started calling her the highway ghost long before anyone agreed she was real. Drivers on the rural road outside the city would mention her in passing, the way people talk about strange lights or bad luck. A woman in a pale dress, walking between moving cars, never touched, never hurt, just there. The first man who stopped for her told me he thought she was a drunk who had wandered into traffic. He slowed down, rolled down his window, and shouted, "Hey, you're going to get killed out here." She turned her head toward him, and for a second, he said he forgot how to breathe. Her face looked normal, too normal, calm in a way that didn't belong on a dark road with cars flying past at full speed. He pulled over anyway. When he stepped out, she was gone. The next morning, he found fingerprints on the outside of his driver's side window. Long, thin marks like someone had pressed both hands against the glass from the outside. He washed them off and tried to forget the night. Others were not so lucky. A truck driver said he saw her standing between lanes, completely still, as vehicles swerved around her. "She doesn't chase you," he told me later. "She waits for you to notice her." He did not stop that night. He just kept driving, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the road ahead. 3 days later, he heard her voice through his radio, not clearly, not loudly, just enough to sound like a woman whispering his name between bursts of static. He pulled over and shut the engine off, convinced someone was playing a cruel joke. The radio went silent the moment he stepped outside. When he told his friends, they laughed and said he had imagined it. When he told his wife, she asked how the voice knew his name. That is when he stopped driving at night. The stories spread slowly, the way rumors always do in small towns. People started taking different routes after dark. Some drivers said they saw her near accidents, standing where no one should stand. Others claimed she appeared only when someone was already thinking about stopping. I collected 3 different recordings from people who swore they heard her through their radios days after seeing her on the road. Every file sounded the same. Soft static. A pause. Then a woman's voice, barely there, speaking in a tone that felt patient. Not angry. Not desperate. Just waiting. Later, when I asked a local radio technician about the recordings, he told me something that stayed with me. None of the frequencies matched any station in the region. The signal did not drift like interference either. It arrived clean, stayed only a few seconds, then vanished. He joked that maybe the road itself was transmitting. I laughed with him, but I did not miss the way his hands trembled when he said it. After that, I stopped trusting anything that came through a speaker at night. By now, you might think these stories are just coincidences. I used to think that he told me he didn't want to check his old messages that night, but curiosity got the better of him. A tech worker, used to seeing glitches, abandoned accounts, and dead profiles, he thought nothing could surprise him anymore. Until it did. The account appeared out of nowhere. The username belonged to a friend who had died 6 months earlier in a car accident. A simple glitch, he assumed. Maybe a leftover cache, a recycled handle, some automated recovery from the server. He clicked anyway. The messages were waiting.at first, mundane. Hey, did you fix the printer? Lunch today. Small, forgettable things, almost like someone was keeping track of his. It wasn't long before he realized he was not supposed to read them. The tone shifted subtly. Not threatening, not cruel, but insistent. The account sent questions too. Did you notice the light in the kitchen? Did you lock the window? Even after he confirmed he had, the next message would repeat the same observation. He tried deleting the conversation, rebooting the system, changing passwords. Nothing worked. The messages reappeared, time-stamped precisely, sometimes seconds apart, sometimes hours. Always accurate. Always watching. The final message arrived in the early hours of a Tuesday. You should stop reading now. He froze at the words, every instinct screaming to obey. And yet, he couldn't. He stared at the screen for hours, feeling something ancient behind the glass. Something that didn't need flesh, but still learned. Something that understood patterns and routines, choices, the small invisible habits that define a life. When he showed me the logs, I noticed something myself. The writing was imperfect, human, casual, but the timing, the precision, was impossible. It had studied him, tracked him, and adapted. And then, as if aware of our presence, it paused the moment I asked what happened next. That warning appears in more stories than you'd expect. In whispers through monitors, static on radios, and shadows at the foot of beds. Sometimes the message is direct. Sometimes it is hidden. But it is always there, watching, waiting, and learning. Warnings are everywhere in these stories. Subtle at first, easy to dismiss. A door that shouldn't be there. A figure that waits too long in the shadows. A message that tells you not to look. By the time most people recognize them, it's already too late. That's the cruel part. The warning isn't meant to protect, it's meant to tempt. Humans ignore warnings. We always do. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. That's why you're still watching this video. That's why you've kept scrolling through stories that make your skin crawl. Horror fans are the worst. We lean in when we should back away. We pause at the eerie silence and play it again, hoping for explanation, for thrill. Dark humor keeps us going, but it doesn't save us from what's coming. You never stop when the warning appears. You lean closer. You read the final line, even when your gut tells you to close the file. You check the hallway when a shadow moves, just to see if it's real. You listen to the static a second longer, hoping it will explain itself. It never does. Sometimes warnings are outright. A voice through a monitor, a message on a screen, a figure appearing only when you're looking. Sometimes they're faint, hidden in the small inconsistencies that make your brain question your own senses. But the effect is the same. You notice. You pause. You realize you've been given the chance to step away. And you don't. I've collected hundreds of stories like this, and there's a pattern. The warnings don't protect. They only mark the moment when you could have turned back and didn't. They're reminders that curiosity, no matter how small, comes at a cost. And that is what makes the next story so unsettling. The warning comes. It arrives in the first sentence. It is loud, clear, undeniable. And yet, it saves no one. 10. Every search and rescue team has rules they never write down. Things you whisper to each other in the locker room. Things you ignore at first, until one day, ignoring them costs someone more than a scraped knee or a lost map. The volunteer who told me this swore he never intended to break the rules. But the stairs were there. He found them on a routine training hike in the dense forests of northern Canada. The path was familiar, the trees quiet in the early morning light. Birds called from high branches. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. And then he saw it, a staircase, standing alone. No building, no trail, just concrete steps rising, straight into the canopy, disappearing among the branches. The first rule came unspoken. Don't climb them. No one explained why. There was no sign, no barricade, just the knowing glance from a senior member of the team. That was all it took. Don't climb. Of course, someone did. A junior volunteer, tired of being ignored, thought it would be funny, or maybe just reckless bravery. They stepped onto the first stair, then the next, moving slowly, laughing to themselves. The rest of the team called out, but the laughter stopped suddenly. They never returned. The forest was silent again, except for the faintest creak of steps that should not have been moving. After that, things changed. People began disappearing near that area. Hikers, campers, dog walkers. Everyone went missing without a trace. Rangers searched the forest, scouring every trail, every riverbank, every rock formation. Nothing, not even footprints leading away. The volunteer told me he never went back. He said it was one of the few places in the world where the earth itself feels wrong. The stairs seem impossible, unnatural, out of place. And yet, they exist. He had heard rumors that similar structures appear in forests across the globe. Same shape, same eerie isolation, different names, but always the same rule: never climb. He said sometimes, when the wind blows just right, you can hear faint footsteps, not following a path, but echoing in the trees. A warning or a lure, he couldn't say which. Every team he knew had a story like this. The kind you whisper only after everyone else has gone home. A staircase that leads somewhere no map shows. A sound you cannot explain. A rule written only in fear. By now, the stories start feeling less like accidents and more like invitations. The forest is quiet, peaceful, perfect, until it isn't. Until something stands where it shouldn't. Waiting, watching, and someone, somewhere, is about to take the first step. He told me he never believed in haunted churches. He was a priest, after all, and had spent decades in sacred spaces. Confession was routine. Forgiveness, guidance, absolution. Nothing in the walls had ever seemed wrong. Until the tapes arrived. They were old cassette tapes, found in a storage closet behind the altar. Dusty, labeled only by years, and a few faded letters. He played one, thinking it would be nothing more than routine recordings for archival purposes. The voice on the tape was calm, gentle, ordinary, not sinister, not angry, not even particularly human-sounding beyond its tone. That's what made it worse. The confession described a sin that had not yet occurred. Small at first, a lie someone would tell at work. Then, bigger. Theft, violence, a stranger harmed. The tape outlined the sequence with chilling accuracy. He thought it was coincidence, imagination. Perhaps someone had recorded the future in a letter or journal and accidentally labeled it as a confession. But then he played the next tape. Another confession, another future event, predicted in detail. He tried to warn people. A parishioner's confession predicted a theft at the local market. Days later, the market was robbed. Another tape described a man who would hurt his neighbor. Days later, the event unfolded exactly as recorded. The voice wasn't evil, he said quietly. That's what made it worse. It didn't scream. It didn't demand attention. It simply stated what would happen. It existed outside judgment. The tapes grew more unnerving. One described a crime in his own parish he had not anticipated. Names, dates, details that were impossible to know. He refused to play it at first. But curiosity, the same dangerous force that haunts every human, drove him to press play. It spoke of a theft, a betrayal, a man hurt by someone he trusted. Days later, the events began unfolding exactly as predicted. He could not stop it. Nothing he did changed a thing. He began cataloging the tapes, noting patterns. They weren't random. They appeared across years and places. The same principle kept recurring. Something or someone recorded actions before they were even taken, observed, cataloged, and perhaps, in some way, nudged toward happening. He stopped trying to fight it. He stopped telling others. He knew the tapes were warnings, but warnings that offered no salvation. You could hear, you could know, and you could do nothing. And that is why he left them behind when he moved. He warned the next caretaker, never listen. But, like all warnings, he knew it would be ignored. By now, you've heard the stories. The whispers through monitors, the impossible stares, the rooms that vanish and reappear, the reflections that move before you do, the tapes that know the future. And if you're paying attention, you might notice something subtle tonight. Something small but off. A creak when the house is supposed to be still. A shadow that doesn't belong. A voice that isn't yours in the static. Dreams that linger too vividly, almost like memories. Mirrors that feel too deep. If something wakes you up tonight, don't check the time. Don't turn on the lights. Just feel it, because once you notice, you'll never quite forget. These stories are more than tales. They are signs, patterns, warnings. And they don't end just because the video does. They follow. They wait. They test the edges of your attention and curiosity. I know it. You know it. And the next time, they will be ready for you again. If you've experienced anything like this, leave a comment. Share what you've seen, heard, or felt. Others are watching too, waiting to find the connections you might have missed. Your story could be the missing piece of someone else's puzzle. And maybe, just maybe, it's the one that explains why these things happen over and over in forests, in apartments, through radios, in rooms that shouldn't exist. Remember, curiosity has a cost. You leaned closer, didn't you? You wanted to see, to hear, to understand. And you have. But the understanding doesn't make you safer. It makes you aware. And awareness changes how you sleep, how you walk, how you notice the ordinary twisting into something not quite right. Next time, I'll tell you the stories I wasn't allowed to tell this time. The ones that didn't make it past the first warning. The ones that would have kept you awake for weeks. I might even find the courage to share them, if I'm allowed to. For now, just keep an ear open. Keep your eyes alert. Listen for the creaks. Watch the reflections. Notice the things that feel out of place. And remember, some patterns are already watching you. Some doors are waiting to open. Some voices will speak to you in ways you don't expect. And if tonight something feels different, maybe it isn't just your imagination. I hope today's stories didn't just scare you, but also made you think. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more horror stories like these. Let me know in the comments which story scared you the most. And remember, these aren't just stories. Sometimes they're very close to the truth. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay safe and stay away from the dark.